just in general, don't always get caught up in the day to day. Like take a step back every once in a while, reevaluate, see the big picture, because that's going to help you make those big strategic moves that are going to allow you to scale your business even further.
Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. Listen, if you're enjoying the show, do us a little favor and leave us that rating and review. All right, it helps us learn more about you and what you're looking for. It also helps more people find this show and gives us some feedback on the kind of information we need to bring to you to help you along your investing journey. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Now, we've got a great show today. We're going to be talking to Bob Hansen. They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to grow as a multifamily investor, you have to spend more time with other multifamily investors. And an easy way to do that is to join our apartment investing mastermind group today. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the mastermind button. Now, as a part of this group, you'll get access to expert trainings, group coaching calls, industry news and updates, as well as all of our webinars and workshops, including our 3-hour workshop on raising capital. Again, if you want to be around other multifamily investors that can help you scale your portfolio today and grow your network, make sure you're a part of the Apartment Investing Mastermind. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the Mastermind button today. Now, Bob Hansen has over 20 years of real estate experience in multifamily and single family. He's got 10 years at apartments.com and CoStar as a regional VP of sales, 4 years as an SVP of operations at Home Partners of America, growing a $20,000 unit REIT, and now 5 years at Second Nature, driving a better resident experience. Let's welcome to the show, Bob Hansen.
Hey, John, thanks for having me, man. I know you're doing a lot of great things in the space and honored to be part of this and happy to join today.
Hey, Bob, great to have you on today. I went over your bio and all your experience at a very high level. Why don't you take 2 minutes and fill in some of those gaps?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, spend a good amount of time at apartments.com. Originally started, we had an SFR site that mimicked apartments.com. A couple of years of getting that off the ground, had some success, and really the apartment side was a lot bigger opportunity. Lived there for a bit as a regional manager in the Midwest, eventually becoming a regional VP of sales out on the West Coast through the CoStar acquisition. Looking for a new change. You know, the CoStar apartments ways are 2 different ways, and had an opportunity come out. It was actually one of my earliest customers on the SFR side. That's like, hey, we know you're a Chicago guy. You're out in California. Let's get you back to Chicago. We're going to do this joint venture with this company. They got a lot of capital. They're going to scale. We're going to teach you property management. So I had been on sales my entire side, and I felt like, hey, if I'm ever going to run a company one day, like you should be a little bit more well-rounded, Bob. And really trusted these guys, and they were that client that told you no 5 times, but you kind of stuck with them, and they finally moved forward, and like it was just a great relationship. So they taught me a little bit about property management. Was able to get at the right place, kind of right time. Home Partners had this right to purchase option, so we were finding folks that were just shy of being able to acquire a home on their own, maybe like a 630 FICO, but 100,000 family income. And they were able to pick the home out on the market that was for sale, because we would assign a rental value to that home, and we would assign a rental value to the tenant. And so if the home, was at or below what we had signed that tenant rental at, they could say, hey, go buy that for us. We would buy it with cash. We'd rent it to them. They'd have a 1-year guarantee that they would lease from us, but they had a 5-year option in most states. In Texas, it was 3 years, where they knew the cost to buy the home back from us. And so we would, have a basis cost of all in, and then we would say, hey, 3.5 to 5% on top of that, to where they could acquire it each year would compound. And so that was a great run. We grew significantly. We did some securitizations. We were putting a lot of money at play and getting people into households. We were probably about 400, 500 doors a month at our max, and scaling into multiple markets. It was there that I then discovered Second Nature, because our product was a lot more expensive, a lot larger than most SFR operators, but the street didn't care. They want to know how much it costs to operate a door. And what I found was crazy enough, John, is that HVAC repair and maintenance was like by far and away our leading spend. And when you're managing, SFR or small multi, it's really hard to get your folks out into those units to change those air filters out. And we are able to utilize that through the company I'm at today. by having air filters delivered to the tenant on a recurring basis to their front door, the right type of filter, like a Mervate filter. And then there was a date stamp on that filter as well. So we could then hold tenants accountable should they not change those filters out. And so when I was there and I saw that kind of working in play, I'm like, hey, I need to come over and get back into sales. Property management is a crazy game. God bless all those people doing it. I feel like, well, I learned a lot and I loved it. I kind of like being on the sales side a little bit more. And now I can kind of speak to being in that seat and helping Second Nature roll in different products that make sense for an operator. So,
Yeah, you
yeah,
talked about having that well-rounded background, right? Being in sales, going over to property management, you know, scratching that itch or checking that box, if you will, and then kind of getting back into the sales side.
yeah.
When you think about that experience and trying to kind of scale what you're doing now, how did that property management experience set you up for what the work you're doing today with Second Nature?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's I'm able to have a conversation and people kind of like take their guard down a little bit because they feel like they're talking to someone that's like is like them and has been in their shoes. And so I'm able to kind of navigate through conversations about how, what does the resident experience look like, right? We know that when we're scaling, in property management, trying to gain more doors, right? It's really hard to add that additional body. And so when you're looking to onboard new products or do new things, it's like, well, who's going to take that over? Who's going to implement this? Who's going to run it with it? And so that's one of the things that we've really thought about at Second Nature is we're going to do a majority of the work, meaning that once you align on which products, and we got to line up about 7, 8 different products now, which products you want to roll into your package. Once that lease is signed, like we're effectively managing it for our operators, so long as they have a professional ERP system, right? Like your AppFolios, your PropertyWares, your RealPage, your Yardies, those guys out there. As long as there's something in play for us to work through, we can then manage it for them. And so that usually really, I mean, it does help out quite a bit, right? Is that we're going to do the work for them.
Yeah, let's explain and maybe just back up a little bit. So, like, what exactly does Second Nature do? You talked about kind of working with it and taking over some of the property management things. So, just tell us high level, like, what does Second Nature actually do?
Yeah, Second Nature, I think we're really trying to change the resident experience. We're trying to flip what used to be something on its head and make it a lot more attractive. Ultimately, we're providing products that should attract tenants, retain tenants, drive down operational costs, and keep investors happy. So what are some of those products that we have? One, I mentioned that air filter delivery. So whether you're a multifamily operator and you got on-site maintenance and you just need filters delivered on time all the time, we can ship a bulk shipment to your community. If you've got a 6 flat or you got a 12 unit building, maybe that tenant should be changing it themselves. We're going to ship it right to the tenant's door on that recurring basis. We then have credit building, which is great about our credit building is that one, it's for everyone 18 years or older on the lease. So ideally, like we'll align on one price point, and whether that home ends up having 1 adult or 4 adults, our price to the operator is never going to change, right? It's very easy to use. We've got $1 million worth of ID theft protection for tenants, right? That helps the cash flow keep flowing to the operator, to the property manager, also helps the tenant out in a pickle. We've got a rewards program that essentially pays hundreds of dollars in rewards to incentivize tenants to pay rent on time versus the old, like, I'm going to dangle a carrot and hit you over the head and I'm going to fine you, right? If you don't get it. I know for some people, collecting that fee is nice, right? But trying to create a better experience and mitigate turn costs, right, is what the operator wants. And so if you can incentivize people to pay on time and create that better experience, you're probably going to have a lot longer of a lifespan of someone sticking in that unit and driving down costs. We have other things like a move-in concierge. So we turn essentially like 5 calls into one. We've got an on-demand pest product. So again, like kind of flipping the old way of like all this preventative costs because you don't think the tenant would ever put in a claim. This is more of like, you're paying a little bit every month into it. And when there needs to be a pest remediation, the tenant sees it as a value because they don't have to pay additional to have someone come out and deal with bed bugs or cockroaches or mites, whatever it might be. So we've kind of flipped that different way, a different approach of looking at it. And then we have insurance as well. So we provide liability and content coverage. We fully manage it. So, our tenants, I should say our clients know that after about 30 days of rolling out, every door is 100% they're sitting at 100% accuracy and effectiveness because we're going to track tenants that go and use a third party company and drop coverage, and then we'll force place it onto our policy. So those are the couple high level products that we have today, and there's a lot of other in the product lineup for down the road. And yeah, pretty excited about what we got going on.
Yeah, you talked about the resident experience, right? Talk about the air filters delivery, credit
Mhm.
building programs, ID theft protection, the on-time payment, right? So the credit building program there. Oh, sorry, the rewards program. You
Mhm.
mentioned the moving concierge as well as kind of that liability and content protection as well. So numerous products or programs that can help those residents. And then I'm assuming that many of these also add to the bottom line for that apartment owner or that investor. Is that fair to
For
say?
sure. Yeah. The nice thing is like our operators that we work with get to kind of select the price point that they feel confident with. It's our job from our seat as consultants to kind of advise. For us, like what I described, maybe you take the insurance out separately, because we think that profit really shouldn't be made on insurance because some markets are becoming a little more gray in what you can charge. And so for us, insurance is always a pass-through cost. But within that resident benefit package, we might suggest, hey, if you like what Bob had to say on this podcast, maybe we go charge $30 to that household or to that unit. And again, whether there's one adult or there's four adults, they're all going to get their own individual rewards for the rewards program, the ID theft, the credit, right? So you could have four people having their credit built. You might be charging $30. Our cost to you might be somewhere, in the range of 1650 to 1250, based upon those products, depending on what works, depending if you need the filter shipped quarterly or every 6 months based upon where you're at in the country. But that's where we're seeing about, 100 and on average about $190 in profit per unit on an annual basis.
There you go. I think it's a huge no, right? So $190 in profit on an
Mhm.
annual basis per unit. And that adds up, right? Let's just use some easy math, right? If you've got a 100 unit complex, you just added 19K
Mhm.
to your bottom line, right? And
Yeah.
19K, you put that at a 5 or 6 or 7% cap rate, whatever your market is, you can see how this can quickly add up to adding value and driving that NOI. And as apartment investors, that's the thing we're looking for, right? We're looking for different ways to add value to these properties. So this is a really good strategic way of doing that. Talk to me about kind of the residence position, right? You talked about, improving the resident experience and adding value there. And as
Mhm.
operators, we're always interested in that, making more money.
Yeah.
How receptive are residents to kind of the different programs that you've laid out?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think like when I first talked to an operator about the program, they think like tenant's not going to be willing to pay for this, and my life's going to be so much harder, and the leasing agent's not. They're going to complain to me about this is harder to do. When in reality, you talk to most of our clients after the fact they've onboarded, and I say, hey, what's the one thing you wish you would have done differently? Like, man, I wish I would have just like listened to you and known that tenants are going to clamor for this. I mean, you may get someone that pushes back here or there, but it's probably the 1%. You know what I mean? I was actually speaking at a conference and there was another vendor in the back of the room. He's like, wait a minute, like I just moved into a property because I saw they had this resident benefit package because in the lease I was responsible for changing air filters and I didn't read the lease and I didn't know I need to do it. I got hit with a couple $1,000 charge. It's like I specifically looked for a place that was going to put air filters to my door so I could change it out. And then you also hear people, there's a lot of people out there that rent because they want to, but as we know, there's a lot of people that rent because they have to. They clamor for that credit building. 1 in 10 residents today is getting their credit built by paying rent, and it's arguably their most expensive spend on a monthly basis, right? So those things attract tenants. There are also things that, as we all know in property management, something's going to go sideways from one perspective or another, from the operator to the tenant. And oftentimes that tenant's going to blame you, and that like it's really on them, perhaps, right? But when you have these experiences and these things that you're offering to them, some of those things that would ultimately say, I'm moving out of the community, I'm moving out of the property, when they start seeing that their credit's being built 30 points and they're starting to see hundreds of dollars in gift cards that they can use at Costco and Target and, Starbucks, wherever it may be, they tend to have a better experience. And those little things that could become bigger in terms of I'm moving out somewhere else, keep those tenants happy and keep them in those communities longer and mitigate that $2,500 turn cost that ultimately you'd probably have to put down if they did move out.
Yeah, you talked about kind of different asset classes a little, right? You talk about those who
Mhm.
really need the credit building, some who don't want to change their filters. Is there a specific asset class that you think this package works better for, or is that based on maybe some of the specific products?
I do think that specific products probably lend themselves a little more to certain asset classes, but we have folks that are, they have $600 rents and they're charging $75 for this and they're getting tenants clamoring for it, right? Like
Over
we might say, hey,
10%, yeah.
$30 is the easy button. You charge 75 and you're looking at a $60, $70 profit, sometimes $60 profit. And I'm like shocked. I'm like, you can get that. You get a $600 rent, but you're charging $75 for this and it works. Then you got people with $3,500 rents and it works as well too, so it's definitely all across the board. And I've not been able to say pinpoint like one works better or not. I just know that we have customers all across the country, and you rarely hear that says, "Oh, my price point doesn't work at this price point or that price point."
Yeah, you started talking earlier about kind of the implementation of some of these things, right? And
Yep.
you mentioned, whether or not they have Yardi or AppFolio or whatever system they use to incorporate. What process does this look like for that person who is implementing, whether that's the operator, the property manager, like whoever that individual is? How much of an undertaking is this?
Yeah, honestly, like we go through a series of discovery call, demo call, you kind of picking out the products you want. Once I'm talking to an operator that feels like serious and wants to move forward with something, I bring in my implementation specialist for one last call. We'd advise you like, hey, bring anyone that you want on this last call. We're going to walk through your software and how we're going to pull this information, how we're going to manage it on the back end. Really, things for us that we need to do is, be able to tap into personal identifiable information so that we can get the credit building going, right? We don't store that information in house. Like we need to find a way to pass that through and get it off to the agencies. And then stuff like, what's the air filter size? If you have a couple buildings, it's pretty easy. But if you have more scattered site, different sizes, it's crazy. Like we carry like 300,000 different air filter sizes and SKUs. We actually have our own warehouse and create filters ourselves. It's crazy that was never like standardized. There's just sizes everywhere. So collecting that filter size, getting that move in, move out report so we can turn on, turn off, and then having deciding like what date you want to say the tenant is late, right? Like rent's due on the first, but there's some days a 3-day, 5-day, 7-day grace period. You define that as the operator, you tell us, and then we pull that information on a monthly basis. We report positive to those credit agencies, report positive to the rewards program, so they're getting those points built up. But once you say yes and you want to move forward and you sign an agreement with us, three 1-hour sessions, maybe 45 minutes to an hour, where we're going to provide you language for your lease. We're going to tell you the best way to advertise it, whether you should advertise the $30 cost in with the rent. If rent's 1,500, are we advertising at 1,530 and saying you're getting all this value add, or are you saying it's 1,500 plus $30? Right, you get XYZ. We walk you through. Really, the big thing is just like disclose to the tenant, and so that they know what they're moving into and that it's out there. And then we manage it, like I said, on the back end. We have an account manager that locks in with our client. They're in touch with them on a monthly, quarterly recap, but we're doing all the work behind the scenes, either flat file information pushed to us, or oftentimes clients would give us access, like read-only access into their ERP systems because they trust us, they know us. And I think John, a lot of reason why that happens is we've been the vendor of the year for 5 years running at the National Association of Residential Property Managers. I've been around the space for 20 some years. I never knew anyone to win it back to back, let alone 5 years. We have a conference coming up next week. Might just be hard to pull off 6 years in a row, but I'd say never count us out. So people trust us, and we do have a lot of former operators on staff as well, like myself, that I think makes people feel more confident about giving us access to work within their systems.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. And obviously, if anybody's interested, they can go to secondnature.com to learn more. Let's talk more broadly, right? So, when you think about that resident experience, what are some things that operators and property managers are missing that they should be paying attention to deliver a better experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me that credit building's been around for so long, and just looking at that, it's like 1 in 10 residents. A lot of people not getting their credit built. I mean, it's just little things like that that you can do to attract a tenant. On the flip side, there's some things with some products we're working on for the future that get a little bit more, get us more involved a little bit earlier from the beginning of the lease and the kind of executing on a lease. who wants to read? I mean, when I was at Home Partners, I think our lease was like 56 pages. Tenants don't read through that. So how do you make that experience better? Well, you call out to them that, hey, you've got a resident benefit package that includes XYZ, right? You're responsible for changing the filter out. Oh, with your cost of $30, we're providing you a Mermaid pleated filter, which is a really good, highly rated, LEED certified points, like a really good filter. But there's people out there that have, you're allowing pets, and some people may have allergic to pet dander. It's like a Mervin 11 filter helps with that. Giving them options, saying, hey, do you want to pay an extra dollar, to get this filter? Do you want to pay an extra $3 to have a Merv 13 filter we're going to ship on a monthly basis? Giving the tenant the ability to make decisions on their own, but also knowing that those decisions, one way or other, whatever that decision is going to be, it's going to have a positive impact for the property management company as well as the investor. That's where I think people often, they don't think that way at times, right? You can give people optionality, but it can impact all three. We call it a triple win, from the tenant to the investor to the operator. So I don't think those are some areas that people could focus in on.
When you think about that leasing process, right? So from the time someone is advertising a property to the resident, touring it or seeing the property, putting in an application to signing that lease and moving in, um, is there a flaw or mistake that you see property managers or owners making that could create a better experience for the resident if they paid more attention to it?
Yeah, I think if I take myself back to the days of scaling, right? And everyone's trying to grow their businesses. And I don't think people really have the time to sit back and think about, what does this experience really look like for the tenant? Does the tenant feel like they're just signing another lease and they're another body into the property? And because human nature is just get my task oriented, task, get my job done so that I'm doing what I need to do to be held accountable to my job. They probably forget that experience. And there's some people that do it really well, right? There's no doubt. But I think if you had to put a bet down, 50% of the operators aren't always thinking about that experience. And again, it's not because they don't want to, it's just the day-to-day tasks and how many things they need to do to be successful. So I think if you could take a step back, which what we're trying to do, and just make that whole experience easier, right? The tenant then feels it, they see it, and it just makes them enjoy where they live and love a little bit more.
Yeah, so I'm hearing you talk about just actually stepping back a little bit, thinking more about the residents' experience, their process, and how can you make that easier or more enjoyable for that resident. Obviously some of our listeners are getting started, maybe have a small portfolio. There are other listeners and other clients that you work with who have very large portfolios and have full-on teams and thousands of units. Is there something that, some of our smaller investors can learn from these larger investors that doesn't necessarily take a lot more money, but maybe takes a little bit more of that system or process to be able to implement?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I was thinking about a book that I just read, Jocko
Yeah.
Wilkin. Hey, you can't lead from the front, right? You got to kind of take a step back and see the whole view, right? When you're on the battlefield, and that way you're able to operate a little bit better. I think just in general, don't always get caught up in the day to day. Take a step back every once in a while, reevaluate, see the big picture, because that's going to help you make those big strategic moves. They're going to allow you to scale your business even further. I think the second thing that comes to mind is get out there and your podcast, right? Listen to others, Mark Ainley, who connected us, great, straight up Chicago investing, great podcast there. Get to know people that have done it. There's a lot of great people out there that realize that there's a lot of the pie to share, and not everyone wants all of it. And they're willing to make it, make your experience better, because what's better for one operator is better for all operators. Right. And so people want to help each other out. I've not seen an industry quite like this, where I know there's people willing to take a phone call, give you a piece of advice. So there's a lot of different ways you can do that, a lot of different associations, groups. I would certainly tell people to take a look at that.
No, that's good advice. And I think it's really important for people to step back and that's that old, work, on your business, not in your business. So you got to make sure you're taking time to do that as well. With that in mind, when you are kind of growing your business in that sales role and working with, new clients, do you typically find yourself being brought in by the property management company or by the owners/operators?
It's honestly, it's a little bit of both. I'm fortunate enough to have some operators that are now also consultants that make some introductions for me. There's also a lot of just a lot of outreach on our end. We're very well known in the single family space, multifamily. I mean, it all intertwines together, right? But I think multifamily, the operator that's got 2,300 unit buildings might not know us. We're the operator who's got a couple hundred, couple thousand doors down to 10 doors knows us a little bit better. And so for me, it's like really just getting us out there, networking, talking to the right people, just being a good person, in general. Like it's an industry that, never burn bridges. And if someone's not ready to talk to me today, I know that 6 months down the road, like maybe they will. And it's like, just let me know. If you don't want me to, if you're going to give me a little bit, I'm going to stay on it and I'm going to keep reaching out to you. But if you want me to back off, just tell me to back off. And if you want me to never call you, let me know. If you want me to punt down the road, let me do it. Just, I think being upfront and honest with people is just, good in general. Right.
Yeah. And the reason I ask that is I think it's important for people to understand too, you've got to run your business and, don't just wait for your PM to introduce services like this to drive the NOI and create that value add for you. You kind of have to spearhead it and take the lead. And listen, you want a partner who is looking at different opportunities and is bringing these kind of opportunities. But if you find something like this that can help drive, again, $190 per unit annually in additional revenue, that's something you may want to sit down and talk to your PM about, implementing and adding to kind of the repertoire of what you have right now. So really good information right there, Bob. Again, if folks want to learn more, go ahead, Bob.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I appreciate coming back that $190 multiple. I mean, that's a great, obviously it's great for that property manager. There are a lot of transactions kind of happening in terms of property management companies being acquired out there. And I do know a lot of folks that we've sold to that have gotten higher multiples as well when they've kind of exited their business or exited but stayed on for a while or reinvested. It's having that ancillary revenue, whether it's from us or from other people, certainly going to help your business if you're looking to make a sale down the road.
No, I love it. Listen, Bob, if they want to learn more, they can go to secondnature.com. Right now, we're going to go to our round of insights. All right, Bob, give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
Boy, a failure that I had, I was definitely more closed-minded. I could go at it myself. I don't know if it was like that. I was just, my upbringing, I could just do it my own. Finally, I took a step back. I reevaluated and I saw that, man, there's a bunch of different ways you can go about this. It just doesn't have to be the way that you think it has to be. So I think early on in my career, I remember someone telling me I was a bulldog when I was managing people and they thought it was a good thing. Because when I was at apartments.com, I was talking to a cars.com executive. I'm like, man, I don't really want to be a bulldog. I want people to go through a wall for me, not because I'm pushing them through it. And so having those conversations and understanding myself allowed me to be a better operator and a better manager, in my opinion.
Man, I got to make a little note because I got a great analogy when you said that, man. It's like there's a big difference between having people who run through a wall for you and pushing people through a wall and not making a mistake of thinking they're running through a wall because they want to.
I mean, I grew up in an area where it was it was so competitive, and I played football. My dad's a Marine, a police officer, just that tough love. And my first job was selling tickets to Super Bowls and Final Fours, and we were all suited up and people were getting let go because they were on the internet doing something I don't know, just not grinding the day out. And it was just, that's all I knew. I didn't have anyone to walk me through what this business world was, right? I had more of a blue collar kind of background. And that's how I started leading when I got into a large company. And, it worked, right? But people didn't like it, you know what I mean? And then when you talk to other people and just getting coffee with other leaders, getting that self, retrospective and opinion that other people see of you, I was like, man, I don't like that. I don't think that. I don't like that. I don't like what you're saying. But it allowed me to reevaluate. And that was awesome.
Yeah, I love it, man. Well, give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
Digital or mobile resource. I think smart technology just in general is a big topic out there. If you do self showings versus having to have yourself go out and show that unit all the time, a lot of those self showing units have a lot of other value as well and help you, better NOI. So I would say that's probably the digital world we're moving into is part of that.
Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
Yeah, the couple books that I gifted Gap Selling by Keenan to our sales team. Didn't help the first time I bought it. I quickly got it and I got it in German, so I had to pull it all back and provide it to them. But if you're in sales, Gap Selling is different. It's not about product. It's really understanding like your pain and then me trying to have a solution for it and taking people from their current state to the future state. So I think that's a great book. But I'm always a big fan of Jocko Wilkin as well, in terms of leadership. So he's got a couple good books out there.
Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
A daily habit, I'll tell you a new one I put in place is like day-to-day grind of working through and also having 3 kids and a loving wife, young kids from 7 to 12 is I have a reminder at like 7:25 at night, that tells me like mindfulness, right? It doesn't matter what it is. It's like, hey, reset yourself. Like you're getting out of your work mode and now your kids are coming back. They're probably cranky, hungry, come from this sport. It just allows me to like become a better husband, a better parent, and set myself and like kind of like calm me down for whatever had gone on in the day, positive or negative. And I think if you have a happy household and you can get loving kids and family, allows you to do more in your day to day.
Give me your number one insight for delivering an amazing resident experience.
Number one insight I would say is find something that works for everyone, and sometimes that comes down to a price point. Like don't try to make every last dollar that you can get and squeeze out of it. Make it good enough that a tenant's going to say, dang, like I love this, right? And then also realize that that's going to have residual value on top of the ancillary revenue that you're going to be bringing in. That would be my advice.
All right, you're in Chicago, so let's lighten the mood, man. Give me your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
Man, I was fortunate enough to be there yesterday with a client. I wasn't the one downtown, but Gibson's is my go-to steak place for sure.
Gibson's is a good one, man. I'm a fan of Chicago cut, but I like Gibson's too.
Also very good. Also very good.
I love it. Well, listen, Bob, you gave us some great information about, really different ways to think about that resident experience. And my takeaway is, first of all, put yourself in resident shoes. What are they looking for? If this is, maybe a C-class asset, maybe they're looking to build their credit, so maybe they can buy a home or something like that one day. So focus on, some of the different platforms or products that can help report credit when they pay their rent on time. Rewards programs, filters, convenience, right? These are the different things that residents are looking for beyond just their unit. So think about other ways to add value to that resident experience, and that's going to help you drive revenue and also maybe help you with retention. If you want to learn more about Second Nature, again, you can go to secondnature.com. Bob, I want to thank you for being a great guest, coming on Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying in touch, and I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. Thanks again.
All right.
Take care.
All right, man. I got to find the stop button here since they moved everything. There